Hi, I'm Jim Munro and this is SunSpeed. It's race 6 in the Formula 1 season and it's time to hit the streets of Monaco. The millionaire's playground, the glitz, the glamour and Chris Hockley. Chris, welcome, good to see you.
Thanks, Jim. I thought Monaco's where you had your second home at taxpayers' expense, Jim.
Well, perhaps afford a roof tile or two, but I think today's property prices, I'll leave that sort of thing to the likes of Jenson Button, who rather neatly is our runaway race leader at the moment. 4 wins out of 5 so far. More of the same?
Jenson, it's as you say, he lives in Monaco. It's his own backyard, so at least you'll know which way to turn the car.
Yeah.
Monaco, as you know, is a circuit steeped in history. British drivers tend to have a lot of success there. I'm old enough to remember Graham Hill, of course, who won there 5 times, and he was just Hill and Monaco were just interlinked completely. He used to go up to the steps, shake Prince Rainier's hand, collect his trophy, and he was everything that Monaco represents because he had the little pencil moustache, and I guess him and Rainier had a cigarette and went off to the casino afterwards.
Yeah, the glory days.
Yeah.
Well, so bringing that obviously back down to the present day, as I mentioned, Jenson Button 4 wins out of 5. Do you think the others stand a chance this time round?
Button's definitely in, obviously, with a big chance, but I think he's going to face a major challenge this weekend from Sebastian Vettel and Red Bull,
right, and
possibly Vettel's teammate Mark Webber as well.
Yeah.
Reason being, Red Bull are bringing their new double-deck diffuser along, the buzzword of 2009, right. Yeah. And they've been pretty quick without it. So with it, I think they're going to give Jenson a very, very hard time.
Yeah. Who would have thought at the start of this season we'd have been talking 5-6 races in, and we're talking about Red Bull and Brawn cars winning? I mean, how have we come to this scenario?
There's a couple of funny things about that, isn't there? I mean, a few weeks ago we'd never heard of Brawn, and people were very excited that Brawn were coming along, and then they dominated. And now some people are saying that Brawn are making Formula 1 dull because of their domination. I mean, it just shows you can't please all the people all the time.
Yeah.
But no, it's just an amazing story that these two teams have really grasped the nettle.
Is this showing us, though, these days that it's the stars, the car? I mean, there's been talk, the FIA have spoken about maybe getting a single-spec car. Is that a possible solution? What can we do to get the drivers back into the prominent part of the racing and not be so dominated by what the car's doing?
Well, the car is the star, as you say, and that's perhaps the downside of Formula 1. And this season has really magnified that, Jim. I mean, it's always been thus. You've got to have a good car to win the World Championship. Yeah. That stands to reason. But this season just seems to have magnified it totally. I mean, you have poor old Lewis tooling around in Barcelona, the world champion, with a pretty lousy car, being lapped by Button, which he won't have liked at all. Yeah. And I guess at this stage I better apologise for my tip in the last
superb tipping service for us all last time.
I'm sorry to everyone who lost money on my lousy prediction, but that's the way things go in Formula 1 sometimes.
Yeah. So we know not to follow your Lewis Hamilton tips again in the foreseeable future, but this idea of the single-spec car, is it something that could work?
Well, it's something the FIA have mooted in the past, seems to have gone away a bit at the moment, and nobody really wants it. And the problem is it doesn't really work, because in other categories where you have a single-spec car, such as IndyCar and GP2, the Formula 1 feeder series, you still get the best teams coming to the top. So in GP2 we've got Bawa, Campos, iSport and ART, who usually mop up most races. So you're left with the same end result.
Right, OK. Well, if that's not going to work, we've heard about the salary cap. We discussed it last time. Hell of a reaction from Ferrari, not too happy at all. If that's not going to work, what else could work?
Well, you know what I'd really like to see? I'd like to see the idea of 2 Grand Prix in a weekend or 2 Grand Prix on a day, because that way, and basically in race 2, you'd shuffle the pack. So the top eight finishes of race 1 would start from reverse in the second race grid.
So basically, however you line up for the first race, you'll be lining up in reverse for the second race. Give everyone a chance.
Almost like that. Depends on depending on the results on race 1. Yeah. I spent last weekend in Po with the World Touring Car Championship, and that's what they do there. The first 8 finishers start the second race in reverse grid positions. Okay, so the guy who finishes first starts on 8th position on the grid. The guy who finishes 8th starts in pole position.
Right.
That leads to really exciting racing, because obviously you've got some faster cars coming up from behind some slower ones.
Yeah.
In Formula 1 terms, that also keeps the purity of Formula 1, which is what everybody seems to want. We don't want to muck about with the cars and the engines and but we want more exciting racing, and I think that's one way to do it.
OK, well, exciting racing this weekend in Monaco. Who should we be looking at?
I think Vettel. I think the Red Bulls are coming on strong. Vettel and Webber. Webber is a qualifying specialist, and it's very, very important at Monaco to be on the front row of the grid because passing is really difficult. But between the two, Vettel.
Right, OK. And we're not just Formula One on this show. You mentioned you were at the World Touring Car last weekend. Another small event going on across the pond this weekend.
Just a bit. The self-styled greatest race in the world, which is the Indianapolis 500. Two British drivers with a great chance of winning, Dario Franchitti and Chip Ganassi Racing, and Dan Weldon driving the National Guard car. I can't get to Monaco this year, so it's going to be a real slob day for me in front of the television. I'm going to watch the Monaco Grand Prix, maybe have a barbecue and a couple of beers, and then sit down in the evening to watch the Indy 500 on Sky.
The life of the rich and famous. OK, Hockers, well, thanks very much as always.
Thanks, Jim.
And don't forget, for the Grand Prix in Monaco this weekend, you can follow all the action through from practice, qualifying and the race itself on our exciting new Formula One race centre, which you can find at thesun.co.uk/motorsport.